I'm going to talk about veganism in numbers and also how it compares with other historical injustices. So the talk is divided in three parts. First, historical injustices and what we can learn from them. Second, where we are at with veganism. And finally, I'm going to talk about the power of an individual. So this particular injustice we use quite a lot in our outreach conversations, don't we? Slavery. When someone mentions that we have been eating meat for such a long time, slavery is the answer to that argument. Slavery lasted for 400 years and still it was not okay. So the movement to stop slavery is called abolitionist movement, and the meaning of that is putting an end to slavery. With abolished, like the people who did take part in this movement, they didn't want slavery to reduce, they didn't want slavery to be done in a better way or something, they wanted it to stop. And that is what the meaning of the word abolitionist means. And that is quite significant in our movement as well, because we don't want animal exploitation to reduce, we don't want it to be done in a better way, we want it to stop. Now, there is a fun fact around it. I have a very good friend whose name has abolitionist, and he is present amongst us. How cool is that, having a name that has abolitionist in the name? So yeah. Now let's talk about slavery. Slaves were not seen as individuals; they were seen as properties. Slave owners didn't consider them as individuals who had same rights as them, but all they thought of slaves was they were their properties and they could be bought and sold. They didn't have any rights, and sick and old slaves were discarded with, and they were not supported at all. All the crimes that were committed against slaves were not considered as crimes. They were not punished. Killing a slave wouldn't amount to a murder, and raping a slave would be as bad as just trespassing. Now, we know all of these things are true for the animals which are exploited in different industries like food industry or clothing industry. They are seen as properties. They don't have any rights. The misfits are discarded, and crimes, you get away with anything you do with animals, and nobody would bother about it. So if you think that false advertisement is a modern concept, think twice, because slave owners, they used to boast about how happy their slaves were, and they also talked about how great treatment they used to give to their slaves. And they also argued that slaves can't exist without the owners. Their whole life is reliant on them. Now, again, all these things apply to the animals which are, exploited for meat, dairy, and eggs industry. Slavery was a big part of economies all over the world, and rich people used to own slaves, and they were very rich and powerful, and they had influences regarding the policies, which is why they could favor the policies that would help them, not try and reduce or not try and abolish the slavery. So that's true for the big industries and corporations who run meat, dairy, and eggs industries, because they are super rich. They make millions off of animal abuse, and they also have strong political ties, and which is why there is a reason why this industry is highly subsidized, because they have policies, they have power so that they could affect the policies around it. Also, pro-slavery people, they used to justify slavery by quoting Bible. They used to use religion as an excuse to continue doing what they wanted to do. And the same is true for animal exploitation as well. People use religion every time when you try and talk to them and try and get them to understand it's wrong to do what we are doing to the animals. And it's not just one particular religion. all the religions across the world are used by people to justify animal abuse. Abolitionists like William Wilberforce, who despised slavery, but still they participated in racism. There are many white abolitionists like him who were against slavery, but they still took part in racism. So this is similar to vegetarianism or people who are animal welfareists. Like vegetarians, they don't want animals to be killed, but they are okay if animals are exploited as long as they are not killed. And same is with animal welfareists, so they don't they are against factory farming and intensive farming practices, but they don't like if animals are treated in a certain way, they are okay with it. In slave trade, families were separated. So whenever buying and selling of slaves took place, more often than not, families were bought separately, like individuals were bought separately, so they would end up being with different owners. And children were separated from their families as well, from their parents. And same is happening in animal agriculture industry, where mothers are taken away from their babies for the milk, and babies are killed at very young age. Let's look at what was done to abolish slavery and how it compares with animal liberation fight. When this movement started, abolitionists spent a lot of time outreaching people and trying to make people understand the harsh realities of slavery and what it really means for a person who is a slave. And they try to get people to understand why it's immoral, why it's wrong to enslave another person for your own benefit. They focused more on the mindset change, and they focused on getting people to believe it's wrong to enslave people. I think our role as animal rights activists is the same, and we are doing the same and we should continue to do, which is to get people to understand it's wrong to kill animals for their food. Abolitionists, they realized that the most effective way to end slavery was to end slave trade, which is to stop the buying and selling of slaves. If new slaves cannot be bought, then that would make it difficult for an existing slave owners to continue doing what they are doing, and that would disrupt the whole system, which is true for our movement as well. If we could get the demand for animal products to go down, then that would result in policy changes, it would result in price increase, it would result in boost to alternate options that we have. So I think that's something that we are doing and we should continue doing. These two photographs are considered as revolutionary because the role of photography was massive in abolitionist movement. So from 1860s, I think photography was quite big, and it helped reach people that couldn't be reached on streets or couldn't be reached in person. So I think same is true for our movement as well. Social media plays a crucial role in educating people about the injustice, and it also plays slaughterhouse footages or documentaries or outreach videos. All those things are definitely helping the movement, because not everybody, we can't talk everyone on the street physically, so we need social media to do the talking for us. And mass movements like animal rights march and protests are very helpful too, because they help in getting people's attention, which is what we need. We need people to start talking about the injustice, so that only when they start talking about it and when they start thinking about it, they are going to make a change. Now, what's the biggest lesson that we can learn from abolitionist movement? Any guesses? I think the biggest lesson for me is, if slavery could be ended, so can be the animal exploitation. So we are doing everything abolitionist activists did, and if we continue doing, and if we even do it even more frequently or in a more effective manner, I think it would be possible to live a world where animals are not seen as properties and they are not exploited. So it is possible because it happened in past and we have the example. Now, if we talk about numbers, so there are around 79 million vegans worldwide, and it depends on what stat you're looking at. So some stats claim that there are around 250 million or 88 million or 100 million, but I'm going to go with the smallest number, which is 79 million. And in the UK, there are around 2.5 million vegans, and out of which, like in 2023 alone, to 1.1 million people turned vegan, which is great. It's evident that the veganism is growing, and it's evident in these numbers, and also the fact that we have got many more options now than what we had earlier in food or clothing or other stuff. But the question is it growing fast enough? I think we would all agree that it's not growing as fast as we would like. So, what can we do about it then? I think the simple answer is to try to get people to go vegan. And why are we wanting people to go vegan? We don't have any secret agenda, or we don't want people to join the cult or anything like that. The reason we want people to go vegan is because we want animal exploitation to end. People might think that this is quite ambitious, but if 1% of current vegans, which I would say around 100K, if all of them try to get 1% to go vegan every year, and that person in turn got another 1% to go vegan every year, then this is how long it would take for everybody, like the whole world or the majority of the world, to go vegan. I know there are many variables to it, and people might think that it might not be possible. And like people who are vegan today, they might go back to being non-vegan, and also like those who go vegan, they don't become activists. So there are many variables, but if we believe that this is something that's possible, because like if you asked an individual, like it doesn't seem like a very big task to get one person to understand what's happening in the industry and trying to get them to go vegan. And if you do it for 20 years, then vegan world would be a possibility. So keeping this in mind and keeping the targets or the figures that we have, if we work towards it, I think it is possible to achieve this target. I'll talk about a power of an individual. So do you ever think that one person cannot make or doesn't make much difference in the movement? Now, this story might change, like your opinion maybe. I don't know, like how many of you have heard of Rosa Parks? I think everyone, almost everyone. So just to remind us of what she is, what she represents, and the story, because it's quite motivating. So I think on 1st of December 1955, Rosa Parks, she was going back home after a tiring day of work, and so she was traveling by the bus, and back then there were like the buses were segregated based on the society, like class, community class, and white people sat separate from black people, and she was sitting at the front in one of her sections, and white people section got filled up, and the driver asked her to move to the back, but she refused to give up her seat. And this incident, like she later got arrested and jailed for refusing to give up her seat. But this incident caused an uproar in the community, and people decided to boycott the buses, and that eventually led like a new constitution to be introduced, where segregation based on the classes was deemed unconstitutional. So that is quite significant in the civil rights movement, because this inspired or this mobilized people to fight for the civil rights. And she is later then called Mother of Civil Rights because this incident holds like quite a lot of significance in the movement for civil rights. And this was her quote: "I was not tired physically or no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. No, the only tired that I was tired of giving in." Finally, I would leave you with this quote from Margaret Mead, which is, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Thank you.